Welcome to BAM, Badass Moms with Lori and Jenny. We are moms on a mission to share women's stories about life, fitness, aging, relationships, travel, and much more. Hello, friends, and thanks for listening. I just wanted to take a second to give you a quick reminder about subscribing to the show. If you have not already, just take a moment and do so. This will make sure that you never miss a daily bite or an upcoming episode. And in addition to that, if you have a few extra moments and like to drop us a review, we'd really appreciate it. And there's also a sponsor of the show located at the bottom of all of our episodes. Once again, thank you for listening. Thank you for being badass. Hello, everybody, and thanks for joining us on another episode of The BAM with Lori and Jenny. Today, we have Madeleine Pollak, who is joining us, and she is a superstar. She is an Emmy Award-winning executive producer. She's also an executive coach. She's a media trainer. She's a mom. She's a badass mom. We can't wait to hear about her journey from being in the TV industry to her now executive coaching journey. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. And I love your podcast. I think it's great that you're doing this.
Yay!
So thank you.
Well, I have to say, so I met Madeleine through a mutual friend, and she had been talking about you for a long time. You have to meet my friend. You have to meet my friend. And then we finally met, and I was like, we chatted just on the phone, like a Zoom call. And I was like, would you come on the podcast? I think you would be fabulous. So, and then since then, we've gotten to take a hike together. So yeah, so it's just been a pleasure to get to know you, and we're excited to dig in a little bit.
How long was the hike? Because that's always
it was short because I had just had my hand surgery, my second hand surgery. Okay. So they humored me, and we did like a very short, flat. I can't even really say it was a hike, but it was on dirt. So I guess that qualifies.
That's awesome.
Hey, it was in Colorado, so it was high altitude.
Yes.
People are
exactly.
There's a theme with Colorado and hikes and all the things when they listen to our podcast, which I love. So Madeleine, take us back a little bit. Give us a little bit of background and history on your career path and being in the media industry.
Okay, well, I was very interested in photography and in theater and acting. I eventually went into acting professionally for many years. And I got my master's in it. I went to England, did some theater there, studied theater, had an amazing time. And eventually I realized, number one, that I really liked the community aspect of theater. And in professional, regional theater, et cetera, the community just comes together for one show. And it's not like a long gig, and it's kind of a frustrating lifestyle. Smaller gigs were fun, but it could also be frustrating sometimes. Directors or, plays weren't that good, and you're just like, oh, it just gets frustrating. So moved to LA, and really I had so much invested in acting and theater, and I'd lived in New York before, New York City, and I didn't want to move there. So I moved to LA at the same time, kind of wanting to get out. And I landed a job after 6 weeks in being a research assistant in a company that does documentary television. And I felt like I landed with my people. It was such an amazing experience. I was with former actors, dancers, news people, and we had a lot in common. And then I had a full-time job, which was super exciting. I wasn't scrambling. And we were doing shows for, Discovery Channel, History Channel, just a lot of interesting projects. And I was actually a research assistant for 2 weeks. And I was like, this is amazing. And so this company ended up keeping me on for 6 months. And I was floating around the company. Eventually, I was the assistant to the executive in charge of production. And he really only had about 2 hours of work for me a day. So he just said, go and do what you want, learn what you want. So it was an amazing job. And then from there, the company was about to close, and I was the first to go. Strangely, I had a huge office. Like, it was really bizarre. And maybe why the company folded, because
poor choices,
financial issues. Yeah. But I mean, so I started moving around in LA and production. And then I landed in a company that was willing to give me, after being like, and only in the profession for a year, they gave me my own shows to produce. And so that was very exciting. And I had some really interesting jobs, around the world. And it was like on my shoulders to figure out what they were about, produce, write, and direct them, find the people, book the crews, do the filming. Not me filming, but hire the crews to do the filming. And it was super exciting. I loved it.
So you kind of learned along the way because, like you said, I mean, although you had been in acting, you kind of got the opportunity to go in and learn all things when you got into the full-time company that you were working for.
Yeah, definitely. And I had a background in photography as well. So the visuals, that was really big in my life, like from age 11 to like 22. I was really obsessed with photography. So it was a combination of those things. Yeah, so it was a great opportunity. And the common thread really is storytelling. Like, how do you tell a story, a good story? You know, finding good people, what's a good interview, all that kind of stuff.
Well, you had to put together this cast of characters to make everything run too. So you had this creative component, and then you also had like this orchestrating, you know, I think about, of course, Clifton Strengths Finder, which is one of my favorite things, but I think about you had to put all these different pieces together to make sure everything flowed and worked.
Yeah, it's a lot. You know, because you want to find, it's weird because I was finding crews in the countries I was going to. That was tough, or occasionally bringing people with me, but it just depended on budget. And so you just really want to find people who, at least for me, I like to work collaboratively. Like, so I want to work with a crew who's really invested in the story and wants to collaborate on how to make a good story. Because I mean, my eyes alone, you know, everyone's seeing something different on set. And, you know, so working collaboratively is the people I hope to hire.
So were you always super creative? Like you said early on, you had an eye for photography. It sounds like even at age 11, you were interested in that. Had you always known that you kind of wanted to be in the media or like be an actress, or was that something that evolved? Or was that just like when you were little, you loved to act? Was that just in you, or was that more like, ooh, you kind of sought it out later as you grew up?
When I was little, I would say we moved from Chicago to Cincinnati, Ohio, and I was put in this local elementary school that was horrible. They'd give you a smiley face if you were good at the end of the week, and it was just very cut and paste and creepy. And I was really interested in theater when we had lived in Chicago. So I moved over to a school for creative and performing arts for 5th and 6th grade and majored in drama and minored in art. And so I was always, then my parents were like, you might not make a living at this. So we want to put you in, they put me in a college prep school, and the academics weren't very good at this performing arts school. So yeah, so then I suffered through 7th through 12th grade, very academic. And I did great, but it was boring for me. Like, I always knew I wanted to be creative and make a living at it. Otherwise I go a little cuckoo.
Yeah. Our practical parents, like, oh, you need something. You hear that all the time too. Like, I don't think you're going to make any money at that. You need a backup plan or whatever. And you kind of showed them that you could make it happen.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure they were pretty mortified along the way.
Right.
I like that.
Did you
practical parents, Jenny? I like that.
I know, right? What about like you said you worked on a lot of documentaries. Were there any standout documentaries that you're like, I just love this topic, and you were just completely absorbed into it?
Okay, well, I have to say that pretty much every documentary I did, got absorbed, which was a really cool aspect of it, and I usually didn't know anything about it. I'm doing a speech right now that I'm going to, like a keynote that I'm taking around, and it's about leadership on the fly, you know, how to manage things. And right now, there's these stories that I'm covering in it about working in TV, but one of them was just so challenging, and I love doing it, but it was really hard. It was about international kidnapping.
Wow.
I was hired to produce a documentary that was going to come out at the same time as a documentary called Proof of Life, which was with Meg Ryan and Russell Crowe. And so that was a while ago. And the date was set. So it had to air that day. And so the movie was based on a guy in Colombia that was kidnapped. And that was who was going to be the star of our documentary. My first day on the job, and I had 16 weeks to produce and find all the material for this and make it a show, dropped out on the first day. So I was like, oh my God, now I have to find stories of people that were kidnapped, that wanted to be on camera, that were international. It was hard, and break into understanding how America gets involved when you're abroad and you get kidnapped and it's not good. Anyway, not a very cheery subject, but it was very fascinating.
Yeah.
And I did love working on it. And
Yeah. And
afterwards, I decided I didn't want to work on any more crime.
yeah, I mean, I think especially if you carry things with you afterwards, like there's some people that can shut it off and compartmentalize. I'm one of those people that carry it with me. If you carry that with you, it's really heavy, right? So I'm
Yeah,
sure it was hard to
I did. One of the
unwind.
stories I did, I went back to I booked a bed and breakfast, luckily, because had a little bit of a comforting feel versus like a generic hotel. And I threw myself on the bed and started crying. And I was like, I think I'm done working on anything with crime. But that
Yeah.
fine line that you just talked about is really true. You have to keep caring, but you have to draw a line. It's very similar to parenting.
Yes, absolutely.
Just to go back
Which,
to
yeah.
the parenting thing.
Good comparison. Yeah.
Yes, I
So let's
know.
go to parenting. You have a son who is now out of the house and he's in his 20s, out thriving in the world. How was it him growing up and you what part of your life were you in when he was born, and were you taking a break or were you still working? How were you juggling it all?
I was still working, not for the first few months. And then I went back to working, and it was a lot to juggle. And the really weird thing was that I was in LA and I had been working on the show called Bringing Home Baby, and the shoots were like 14 hours. And I was meeting all these women who were about to give birth. And they wanted me on the show because I was pregnant. And so I had a lot in common with these women. But then they brought the show to Colorado, because I was here, so I could easily be on the ground to do it. So I would go to a shoot and spend 14 hours on the shoot and would think, wow, this is really relaxing compared to being a mom.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding.
Break.
I was like, wow, it's great to get out of the house and see adults,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
feel like, oh, I'm a human being. And I maybe once had a job before I had a baby. Like, whoop.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we always joke like in our moms kind of circle that, we all know each other as moms, but we don't really know our before, right? So it's very intriguing when we sit down and chat and actually find out like, what were you doing? And still work, but before kids, like what was your life like? So I always find it fascinating. Like you do have different identities along the way.
It's really true. I mean, if you have to live in the same place where you had a lot of your life before the kid, that's so wonderful. But we moved here 5 weeks before my son was born.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
So it really
How
was
was
like the
that?
next chapter, right? Like next chapter, new place.
pretty much. Yeah.
So everything new all at once. Like, how did that? I mean, those are like some of the most stressful things all happening within, 2 month or 1 month, 6 week time span. Moving, having a baby. How did that go?
I mean, first of all, he was born 5 weeks early. So it was a little crazy, and we had just moved here. Neither of us had jobs. I'm actually, because of being in theater and TV, I'm pretty flexible. I think it's harder for my husband, who'd been living in the same place for 20 years. But yeah, it was hard because, having a baby just changes everything. And so I felt like the hard part was really actually dealing with work rather than with my son, which is kind of interesting. And he was an easy baby, thank God. But,
Yeah.
it was challenging for sure. But we were in the hospital for 18 days.
Oh,
and
wow. Okay.
Boulder Community Hospital so he was in the NICU, and he was fine. He just couldn't suck and swallow. He hadn't developed that capacity yet at that time in the pregnancy. And he had jaundice, but they had a separate room, right? They had a room for us with a queen size bed, and then a room right off of it for my son, Will. And, at that point, it was like kind of scary to go back to our place. Like we hadn't unpacked yet. And, we had professional help round the clock.
Yeah.
I remember that feeling of like, what am I going to do when I get home and I don't have anybody to tell me what to do or help me?
Like, how am I going to keep this human alive? Like, I think this like fast. They're like, just give you your child and off you go.
It's
just
so weird.
There's no test. There's no nothing.
Here you go. Keep them alive. All right.
Yeah,
I know.
Yeah.
At one point, one of the nurses came in and she said, "You two need to go on a date because it's the only time you're going to have professional help."
Right.
That's so true. Yeah.
So we went out to watch a Harry Potter film, and then we went out to dinner, and we were just cooing over Will the whole time. I was so hormonal. I mean,
Oh.
Yeah. I don't know about you two, but I remember after my older daughter was born, in the car on the way home, I sat in the back seat. Did you guys do that? And I remember making fun of people that did that. And I like totally was like, oh, I'm not going to sit in the front seat. She's way back here.
Totally. You have to keep your eyes on all times.
Right. Yeah.
Yes, it's such a weird feeling. And then, I mean, you're trying to keep them safe. You're doing everything you can to support them. And then all of a sudden you just have to throw them out into the world, which you just did, right? So now he's like in college and you throw him out in the world and then you have to figure out who you are again. You have to see how they do. Like, how has that been?
Okay.
Total shift. Yeah.
It's a really interesting transition. Like I would say
Yeah.
the first year I was in moms groups and we had so much in common because we just had babies. And then after about a year, you reach this milestone, you have the first birthday and you're like, wow, I made it, and like he's healthy. So that's really great. And then you start looking around going, wait a minute, who are these people that I'm hanging out with? And do I really have much in common besides being a mom? So some of those friendships shifted and, just finding out who I am as a mom. And I don't know, it's a bit of a whirlwind. So much of it felt like survival.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know Jenny is also an empty nester and, it is like, I am trying to hold on. I have a little one that's still 8 and then I have a stepson who will be going into the world next year, hopefully. No, he will. He's on his way. He's a 17-year-old boy, so they'll figure it out at some point. But, I just hold on because I see how fast it goes. And then when you hit that point, like how there's so much freedom that it opens up, it seems like, but also at the same time, like, you lose you don't lose them, but they're outside of your home. They're now in the world, as you want to call it, like how you deal emotionally with that and the connection and relationship, if that changes or if it strengthens. I mean, what is both of your experience with?
You want to go ahead, Jenny?
Yeah, it's so interesting because I feel like even though I worked the whole time, I had kids, right? So you have your own thing and I had a full life with friends and all that kind of stuff, but you don't realize how much time and emotion you are putting into your kid and then they leave and then it leaves like this big vacancy that you're trying to figure out what the hell to do with. And to your point too, like the people that you've been hanging out with, I mean, they're lovely and we've been great friends over the years. And now we've all kind of gone different directions because our kids have gone different directions and our lives have gone different directions. So there's all kinds of shifts that are happening at once and you're trying to figure out how to manage them. So it's just this weird transitional feeling. I was thinking about it the other day and I was like, the last time I felt like I had a big transition like this was honestly when I was going to college, because the other stuff is like moving so fast and you've got like when you're having a baby, it's kind of a blur. You're just like in this whirlwind and there's just a flurry of activity around you at all times and you're so focused on this child. But when you go to college, it's all about your own personal transition. And I kind of felt that same feeling, which is super weird.
I'm so glad you brought that up because I feel like I want to be going to college.
Me too.
No, all the time, especially now that we're touring colleges. I'm like,
I know, it's so weird. Yeah, everything you said, I feel like I'm going through. And that's really interesting that you said that about college. I think that I would say one thing for us, and it's just gotten harder and harder and harder to get into college and to pay for college. My son's senior year was really intense because of writing essays. And I was really involved in that because I was pretty dead set on, I didn't want him to have any debt.
Yeah.
And also just be there to support him because he had a crazy senior year just academically. And so it was intense. So all of that intensity and the transition that's coming up was a lot. And then all of a sudden there's summer. And then the first year of college, like, oh, it's really sad and he's gone and it's freaking weird. The house is empty and it's so quiet.
Yeah.
And then now that it's his sophomore year, my husband Peter and I went up to see him in an ultimate frisbee contest, tournament. And it was a little bit like, okay, He's solid. He uses the term solid. Things are solid,
They're solid. I love that.
But he was like, he had his friends. He's got a girlfriend that he met like in October last year. So and they're solid together. We know her. He knows his major. He
He's
knows
figuring
where
it out. He's
figured
figuring
it all
it
out.
Like it.
And we were like, oh, wow, he's really on his own now. Like he doesn't really need us. And it felt a little bit like the nails in the coffin.
But I do wonder, how often does he call his mom? How often does he call you?
Does he call me? Oh, no, we've ratcheted down to once a week, which if we're lucky. I text him. I try not to text him too much. And then last year, I was texting him a lot last year. And I said, am I texting you too much? And he goes, no, but I might not be able to respond.
Yeah. When I don't get responses, I will send a picture of the dog because they'll usually do like some sort of a heart or a thumbs up or something. And I get proof of life.
Yeah.
They won't respond if I ask them a question or, but if I send a picture of the dog, I'll a lot of times get just like, they'll do a little heart or, back or a thumbs up or whatever.
That's hilarious. That is so funny. That's actually a good thing for everyone to hear. Good little tip.
Jenny, how often do you talk to your daughters? Because I've heard this, and I don't know if it's true, that when boys versus girls leave to go to college, it's always the boys that tend to be a little bit more calling and not needy, but just like, that want to talk to their mom. Has it been that way with your daughters, or?
It's cyclical. They go through phases. And honestly, the less I hear from them, the more I'm like, okay, they're in a good place. They're busy, they're doing well. The more I hear from them, it's usually that they're struggling with something. And so as much as I want to hear from them, I kind of am like, oh God, what's going on? Why are you calling me so much?
Right.
I don't know if you've had the same experience, but yeah, that's how it's kind of played out.
Yeah. Like needing advice or just kind of needing to chat about things. Right. Yeah. No, I can see that.
Yeah. Like, I mean, yesterday was one of those days where adulting was hard for both of them, And so Chelsea called because she needed to put oil in the car. And then Alyssa she was stuck on the phone trying to get her credit unfrozen for like a ridiculously long period of time. And so Sean had to help her, so it was like, navigating through that kind of stuff. And they were at their wits' end. I mean, you know how it is. You have to sit on hold for God knows how long when you're trying to do something. And then you get hung up on and you're like, I don't have time for the, it was adulting. It was like normal crap and they haven't had to deal with it before.
And then they call mom and they're like, Mom, I need your help.
Yes.
Like,
yes.
Right.
I know. And you're like, oh, thank God they need me for something.
Right. But now my mom, I love my mom. She's so cute. Oh. She doesn't have an Amazon account. So she literally will take a picture of screenshot it to me and ask me to order it for her on Amazon because she doesn't want an Amazon account. So and then she'll half the time not get the whole picture in it. And so she'll be like, can you order me this on Amazon? But I can't even see the title. It'll be like a bag.
Right.
A backpack. But I don't know what kind.
That's hilarious.
I love it.
Our kids need us and, our moms need us and all the things.
You go back to being needed again, right?
Yeah, it's true. So Madeleine, let's go back to a little bit of the transition that happened from, when you were being a producer to now getting into executive coaching. How did that happen?
So I had always kind of coached even after I got my master's in theater. I moved to San Francisco and I just started coaching there. So I love coaching in general, and that was in theater. I've coached actors. And then I was doing TV and a couple things happened. One was one of my clients that I was doing videos for reached out and said they have a pitch coming up for a big client, their biggest ever. And they wanted me to coach them, like pitch coach. And I was like, well, I've never done that before. And they said, that's okay. We know you were an actress. And so it was one of my most fun jobs ever. It was a creative company. It was 7 people, the 2 people who ran the company and 5 other incredible people. This was they were pitching to Sports Authority, which was going to be their biggest client ever. And they were so creative and fun and were willing to do anything and write stories. And we crafted stories about what was really personal to them so they could relate to Sports Authority. And who is buying from Sports Authority because they were going to be doing marketing for them. And they did accents and we did all these fun games and they were just totally game. And I was traveling in New York with a friend and they called and they said, "Oh my God, we got it. We couldn't have done it without you." And I was like, oh, I was just so excited. And they said, "You really need to start a business doing this." And so I kind of had been doing it anyway, but they then hired me to coach people at their company. And then I was hired at another company. And they they just kind of out of the blue asked me to write speeches. So I was writing speeches for their national sales meetings. And then that turned into every time I met with Laura, that's our mutual friend, we would get together for lunch and I would tell her, "Oh, I'm working with a client on voice work or this person's struggling with leadership." And she would be like, "Let's talk more about that." And she would bring me in to work with her team. She was amazing. And I just started developing from there. And that was on the side when I was doing TV. And then I just started getting clients and really loving it. So one thing that happened was because I was coaching, there was something that was started in Boulder for coaches, like a meetup. And it only lasted 2 sessions. But in that session, I met a guy who reached out and said, I'm working on my credential for coaching. I'm offering really cheap coaching, life coaching. And I was like, never really interested in life coaching because I didn't really even know what it was. Well, I started working with him and he was amazing. And he really helped me identify, there were some frustrations I was dealing with in television. About being the only woman on the set and getting pushback from crews. And I'm the one who has to bring the story back. And there was just a lot of weird dynamics. And I just realized I want to start understanding what makes me tick, what differentiates me from other people that do what I do. And he was wonderful. And he would see, well, when you just talked about, when you were public speaking, you really lit up. Like that's something you want to do. He started really noticing and also about when I was coaching people and I really liked it. So he helped me really dig into what do I have that's different and make me really acknowledge like maybe what I did naturally anyway, but kind of put some framing to it. That's awesome.
It's like,
help me.
It comes so naturally. It probably came so naturally to you. Like the things we're good at come naturally to us. And so we don't see them as like a superpower or as a strength or whatever. And if somebody can recognize that and help you kind of tap into that, I think it's magical.
It really is. And also I think the weird thing is the stuff that maybe we're good at and that comes naturally, that's easy, sometimes doesn't feel like work. And then you're like, well, it's supposed to be hard. That's like,
yes.
On the easy route, but but it's like kind of nice to step back and go, okay, this could actually be more in my zone. Not like one or the other. I really miss TV, some aspects of it.
Do you?
Oh yeah. Interviewing people and the whole story aspect of it. But I get some of that from what I do now, a lot of it.
I was going to ask, who's been like the most interesting person that you've gotten to interview? Is there anybody that's stood out?
Who I've gotten to interview? Well, there's so many interesting people. I mean, I would say everyone I interview is interesting, most interesting. Whew, that's a toughie. I would say I used to work for Dr. Phil. I had a really interesting experience where I was interviewing. It's kind of a sad story, but I was interviewing a woman. I just remember this story a lot where she called up Dr. Phil. She wanted help. She lived in a tiny town and she had experienced sexual abuse when she was younger and she had kids that were getting of age where she was actually almost afraid to be around them. And she had a really tough situation. She was working full time. Her mom's had Alzheimer's. Her husband worked at night and slept during the day. So everything was landing on her and she was just really needed help. So I interviewed her and when I met her, her eyes cold, like so cold. And they just look like, Siberian Huskies, like how their blue eyes can be so cold, beautiful,
like
but
steely.
Cold.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this is going to be really hard. And then I started interviewing her and within 5 minutes she was crying and completely transformed. And I'd never quite seen that before. Like
Yeah.
you could just see from the beginning to when she started letting it rip, like how much she was holding and how difficult her life was. And that's, one that comes to mind. But
Yeah. It's like the human vulnerability, right? It's,
yeah.
I guess, humanity coming through. So it's just, I think that's what I love about talking to people too. It's like you just get to see what made them who they are. And when those things start to come down, those walls start to come down, and really understanding really the core of the person, it's fascinating. I love
I
it.
totally agree with you. It's really interesting.
Yeah.
And also to me, it's really interesting and bizarre that people want to be on television. I mean, here I am on a podcast. So what am I saying? But, like, it's not that I don't understand it. It's that whole 15 minutes or 15 seconds of fame. But I really get it. Like, underneath it all, people want to be seen and heard, and they want to be
Yes.
seen. Like, and we're all craving that,
I think coaching is so magical because we do need to be seen and we do need to be heard. And there's something about coaching where you get to pull things out of people that they can't access themselves. So, and maybe that's the common thread from where you went from one thing to the next, right? Like some of those skills are similar.
Yeah. It's like, I think a lot of it has to do with, bringing out people where they're comfortable and they're authentic, like where they really feel like they can be themselves. And I do a lot of work in corporations, and a lot of people just don't feel like they can be themselves. Like they're afraid, or, they're worried about saying the wrong thing, or they have a terrible boss, and they, how do you navigate all that and keep your sanity and, feel energized by your work as opposed to really weighted down by it at the end of the day. And we spend so much time at work. It's like,
so and it sounds like for what you're focused on now, executive coaching, where is kind of your specialty, right? Like, do you have a path where I think, and you guys both being kind of in the coaching arena, every coach has it kind of their specialty that they kyle in and that they speak about. For you, is it like large corporate executives? Is it smaller executives at a company? Is it one-off business entrepreneurs? Who are you coaching? I mean, I know you can coach everyone, right?
Well, so interestingly, it's not any one specific things. I've worked in Fortune 500, a couple Fortune 100s, and then down to very local. So I think, but my foot in the door, business wise and experience wise, is often, but it's not the only thing I do, but oftentimes people will hire me to help them with a presentation, and that turns into leadership coaching, and they go hand in hand.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a different way of answering that, is that, but, people come to me for leadership coaching too. It just depends. But yeah, it doesn't really matter, who the person is. It's more, what are they actually dealing with? Because up and down, in terms of what I deal with, a lot of the issues are the same. I mean, not necessarily the same level, like an executive oftentimes doesn't have anyone to talk to.
Yeah.
And can be very low, and, and can't really get the perspective they want outside of the pressures that they're having. One person I worked with explicitly said, and I had been working with other people in the company, and then they brought me in to coach him. And he said to me, no, I don't want you talking to anybody else in the company now. Cause cause he needed that. And I totally understood it,
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different issues that come up.
I don't know. I can't remember if we talked about this when we were on our hike, but the show Billions, did we talk about this?
No.
Okay. I watched one season of it, but it was like, I think she was an organizational psychologist or something, or I don't know if she was actually a coach, but she was on staff. I think every company should have somebody like that on staff. I mean, athletes get a coach.
Agree.
I'm like, why do we not have somebody like this that can hold space and can ask you questions that make you think things through? I mean, I just think it would be
I love
such an amazing
it's not your
thing.
boss, but it's like at a company you
a
can
safe
reach out to the
place.
coach, and the coach has no bias towards anyone. They're there to strictly coach you, and it's confidential. It's kind of like a counselor. It's like your counseling coach for work, right? And that can help you have those strategies and tools. I love it. You guys started another business, Jenny.
Well, it's so interesting that you said that, because I don't know if we talked about it because I bring up that show and that role to people a
Oh,
lot
really?
because I loved that role and I
Yeah.
thought interesting role.
Yeah.
Although I don't believe that you can stay that
Unbiased.
biased when you're
I know.
being paid as a full-time employee in the role. Although she did a
Yeah.
pretty good job at, being straightforward with the head of the company and putting him in his place.
But I agree with you. I think honestly, you'd have to have like zero fucks to be in that role, because you have to give it straight and you can't think about where your paycheck is coming from.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a hard balance.
It's really interesting. It's an interesting role, but I have to think like in other societies, like more primitive societies, there was somebody to go talk to, like within the culture. Maybe it was the wise person, or maybe it was an elder.
Yeah.
Maybe it was a religious or something, but I think those were embedded more into society than they are here, where you have to go pay somebody to do that.
I saw something, I think it was Japan, and it said that they keep kind of an older person on staff
like as a resource, as a
resource,
okay.
like literally just for people to ask questions and kind of to hold that space for them. And I just thought that was fascinating.
I think that's great. That would be amazing to have somebody like that. That's just not necessarily on.
They'd have a line out the door.
Yeah. Yeah. They're on. Exactly. They would be so busy. There would have to be a bunch of them. They'd be like, wow, we're spending a lot of money. But I think it would increase employee morale and all the things because they'd have that resource for them. Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The first company, my first TV job, I sat first, before I got that big office I never should have had. I sat right next to an office with a guy who was older. He had an Academy Award statue in there, and he was hired by the head of the company to be the advisor for the company. So
I love that.
People would come in and close the door, and it might have been more like an advisory role around different projects or issues or subjects for documentary, or, I'm sure it was partially being a coach. And I just thought it was amazing. And, I didn't get to know the details, and I didn't really know at that time how important, it was my first job in TV. So I just kind of assumed that's a thing. And that was the only time I saw it. But this guy, he used to go downstairs. There was a really nice restaurant in the basement, and he always used to leave. He brought me tiramisu every day. He left it on my chair. Not good for the waist. It was really tasty.
It was an extra job perk.
Yeah, it was a perk for the job.
Right. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So
love it.
I always love to kind of dive a little deeper now that your son is out of the house, now that you have a little more free time. Besides working, what are some things you like to do that, fill your bucket, that keep you going? It could be travel. It could be, any additional hobbies.
Okay, so I am definitely playing a lot of pickleball. I have crossed over to the pickleball fanaticism that I just played in my first league, and I've met wonderful people. I've got a really good friend now that I met in pickleball. She and I traveled to her home town in Brazil. That was super fun.
Oh, fun.
That was a really neat and wonderful cultural experience. And I also have been doing a lot of dance, and that's not something I studied dance because I liked it and I had to, but I was never very good, but it was part of theater. And now I'm in my third round of actually performing in dance. Terrifying. And I had a lot of stage fright. Even though I was an actress for many years, I didn't realize until halfway through grad school that I had really bad stage fright, and that there was something I was missing. And now I'm like challenging myself to get over myself and perform in dance.
Like in shows or like
shows.
Oh,
it's
good
like,
for you.
Hip hop, pop kind, and
that's so fun.
Yeah, it's a challenge, and it's really embarrassing, but it's part of a dance studio that they're really welcoming of all ages, shapes, sizes, abilities. And they really encourage you to do this stuff. And I'm like, well, do you really want
next journey? Are you going to be a backup dancer for some trendy girl band coming up? Is that what's in your pocket?
Yeah. Bring in the grandma.
Yeah.
G-pop, some grandma pop.
Yeah, that would be hilarious.
That's great.
Yeah,
so
but
fun.
I mean, I feel like we got to keep challenging ourselves. And I don't know. I think just about this transition, I think you
Mhm.
kind of come head on, face to face with what do people think in our society do? What are the perceptions about who you are after your kids go to college? What do
Mhm.
you want it to be? What do you think you're capable of? You're then aging, and what does that mean? And maybe a tweenie, like a sandwich generation, which I am. My mom's elderly, so there's a lot of caregiving there that's happening. So it's not totally like everything's gone, but yeah, it is a weird transition. You have to you have to kind of wade through a lot of, I'm supposed to do this, and go, well, what do I
Mhm.
really want to do?
I think it's
Yep,
I
absolutely.
I think it's an opportunity that I think you both are embracing where you are stepping out of your comfort zones and doing and, trying new things and really embracing the opportunity to spend a little bit more time on you, right?
Mhm.
And I think that's great. I mean, I think everybody should have those moments no matter what stage of life. But I think when you really are presented with those big life milestones, like, never just being content and always thriving to be the best dancer or, be the best
Yeah.
pickleball player or be the best hiker or Jenny, what else are you doing these days? I don't know. Jenny's always up to
Well,
something.
okay, I have to tell you something funny. Something that keeps coming up, and I'm resisting, just so you know. But everybody keeps talking about mahjong, and my mom is going to a mahjong class, and people are talking about, I really want to learn how to play mahjong, and I'm like, I am sorry, I don't want to sit any more than I already sit. If there's
Oh,
sitting involved, I'm like, I don't want to sit there. I need
Yeah.
something active.
Yeah.
So if you want to do hiking and stuff like that, you call me. But
You
mahjong,
know,
if we could do it while we're walking, that's fine. But I don't want to sit.
I agree
So
about the
anyway,
sitting. I just I don't want to be sitting.
I'm standing right
yes,
now.
I don't
Yeah.
think we're good at sitting, are we, Lori?
Yeah, no, I have to stand. I like sit for a limited amount of time during the day, and I like it because then I can just like stand up. Standing desks are amazing.
Yeah.
And I know some people have those walking treadmills at their desk, but I would literally fall. I have a feeling I
I
would.
have a treadmill, but I find even if it's on a super slow speed, my breathing is just weird.
Yeah.
So I can't do it unless I'm on a call with somebody
Yeah. Unless you're
internally.
just standing there. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So Madeline, so much amazing things you've done. I always like to say, what are you most proud of? It's always a tough question because you've done so much awesome things along your journey so far. But if you had to pick one or two things that you're most proud of
In my work,
and anything in your
anything.
life.
Oh, well, I'm most proud of my son. He's an awesome human being. I love him. I mean, I don't just love him, but I really like him. He's a really good guy.
That's important.
He's doing really well. So I'm super proud of him. The other thing, I guess one thing that happened when I was, directing a play for kids was I had to, double cast. There were 70 kids and I was directing Annie the musical. And
Mhm.
so I had to cast two Annies. And so I cast two. One of them was a typical Annie, which Annie's like all about orphans and, with a horrible leader of the orphanage, and they're all dying to get out and dying to get adopted. One of the people fit Annie really well, and the other one was just super brave. And Annie is a brave character. So I cast her, and she was a little bit more quiet and shy, but I really liked her in the role. And then after the whole thing was over, and I was like, okay, we're not just doing a little musical here. We're doing a professional job. And I was like way more into it than they expected. But at the end of it, Annie's the one that was kind of shy came up to me. The mom came up to me. She said, I want to thank you so much for what you did for my daughter. And I was like, oh, she was really great. And she said, no, I need you to understand something. My daughter this was our last possibility for us. She had massive social anxiety, super depressed, on a lot of meds. And this completely transformed her life. And she now is off the meds and she found her thing. And I was just like, wow, like that to me, that's the power of theater and the power, she was brave and she took risks. And I did not even know what was going on with her. I just saw her and I believed in her. Like I saw something in her. And so that wasn't really on me, but it was a proud moment that somebody's life changed just by being
You were
around
able to foster it, right? Like you saw it and were able to foster it. I love that.
without knowing. So yeah,
Yeah.
but
I love it.
it was really a big deal to me. So I love kids.
Yeah.
Madeline, so much wonderful things that, I've gotten to learn about you. I know Jenny already had like the scoop because she got to go on a hike with you, which
The Cliff Notes, yes.
She had the Cliff Notes, but it was such a pleasure meeting you today. But what is one like line of advice or some advice someone's ever given you that you'd like to share, or the best advice that, you think that you could share with our listeners to help them along their journey in life, with their careers, with whatever it may be? One of those words of wisdom. It could be parenting. It could be just general advice.
I would say that I have two things. One is kids are really resilient. They don't really break easily. And the other thing is, if your kid is getting bullied, do something about it immediately. And I just want to say, like, my kid was being bullied when he was 3 and I didn't jump on it. And I was like, honey, you need to stand up for yourself. Like, that's how I was raised.
Yeah.
And then I realized, oh my God, and that happens times. And I would say, if it's happening at school, call the school immediately. And bullying is a really big issue. And even if your kid's not being bullied and somebody else's kid is being bullied in the class, it can be really hard for the other kids, like it was for my. So anyway, that's my parenting moment right there.
No, that's great advice. Yeah. I mean, I think bullying is a huge deal. And I mean, I think the schools, they're getting better about it. And, I know like my little guy's in elementary school and they do like little sections and stuff on that. But I think it's so important for parents to realize, like, you don't need to, take a step back and let your kid try to, suffer through things that shouldn't be happening. So I think that's wonderful advice.
There's a fine line between that and being a helicopter parent, like, and it's tricky, but I finally realized, okay, no, this is not an area where you want to back off. So luckily, last time it happened was in middle school that I know of.
Yeah.
And my son burst out crying about that this was happening and been going on for a while. And I was like, I emailed his counselor at 7:00 that night, and I got a response at 7:30 the next morning, and they pulled that kid out of class. They pulled Will out of class. They got it taken care of. And I was so grateful. But not all schools do. You have to push for it.
I know. But I mean, they're out of their depth, right? Like as adults, we don't know how to handle that kind of stuff, let alone a 14, 13-year-old kid.
Exactly. And I think he was like, 11 or something. They don't know.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I know, Lori, you usually ask this question too, but what are you most excited about?
Oh, yeah, that's a fun one to end on.
So I'm excited about doing some public speaking and keynotes, and I'm working on my speeches right now. One of them includes the story about international kidnapping and some of my other experiences. And it's a good challenge for me. I coach people on public speakings, and it's a really neat way to meet people. And just reach an audience and, clarify what my thoughts are on things. It's terrifying. I like I like jumping off the side of the cliff.
We can tell with your hip hop.
Yeah. I'm like, well, I don't think I ever want to play you in pickleball either. I think you have a pretty good team.
I know.
People want to reach out and, meet you or, participate in your services. What is the best way for them to get a hold of you?
My website is a good way. It's Pollak, Pollak Productions. That's plural, Productions, consulting.com.
Okay.
And I've got an email.
Find you on LinkedIn and all the things.
Oh, right? Yeah. And LinkedIn. My name is hard to spell. So Madeleine Pollak.
Have you ever gone by anything shorter, or has it always been
Mads? MADS. Or Mad Dog, Madeleine Mischief. I have a lot of
I like it.
We should have known that.
I like it.
Maybe I'll go back and introduce you as Mad Dog.
That can be your hip hop name.
Right.
Exactly.
I love it.
Well, thank you so much. You were both so fun to talk to, and I was really also excited to hear your stories, which I want to hear more of.
Well, yes. Well, we've got hikes in our future. Don't you worry about that.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much. Really a pleasure meeting you.
Thanks so much.